Hi, Lori. Thank you for your presentation on 21st century learning, including or using a wiki as a parking lot or a space to house your presentation was a good choice. I had a few comments, and I've made some other comments on a separate marking sheet, more specifically about your resource page. You've included a number of really interesting links and blogs here. Um, it was good to see what you chose to include, as well as having some examples from VoiceThreads and Animoto. And I thought these were good examples to use to sort of help colleagues potentially understand what you're talking about when you're talking about tools that we can use to engage 21st century learners. I would have liked to see you, however, go into more detail about 21st century learning, 21st century skills. What does all of this mean? Not so much in terms of the tools that we can use to engage our learners, although that's certainly a big part of it, but how do we actually think about this? What does all this mean for us as teachers and teacher librarians? Your slide share provides some of that context, and I thought this was a good start, but again, it's not really very in depth. That is one of the problems with a slide share or a PowerPoint like this. Perhaps having some audio or a podcast where you could talk through some of these ideas and provide some more detailed information might have been helpful. Um, it just felt a little lacking in depth, I guess, is the best way to describe that. And there are so many resources available that I think you could have taken a look at to really highlight some of the things that you obviously understood and read, but that need to be conveyed in greater detail in a presentation like this. If you think about the fact that you're presenting this to a potential audience of other teachers who maybe aren't as familiar with some of these concepts, um, I think there was more you could do to really give them a really solid understanding of what this is all about. You reference in your resource page the Partnership for 21st Century Skills, and that's a really good website to direct people to. I would have liked to then see you actually elaborate on that and talk about that in your actual presentation, and then relate that back to what that means for teacher librarians. You could also have talked about or referenced Bernie Trilling's and Charles Fadel's book, 21st Century Skills, Learning for Life in Our Times, which is part of that Partnership for 21st Century Skills, but really goes into more detail, and I think would have given you a really solid foundation for your presentation. Another book you might want to take a look at would be Paul Free and Gasser's book called Born Digital. All of these resources would have, I think, been helpful for you to take a look at and then to include and synthesize in some way in your presentation. You cite a lot of interesting things on your resource sheet, but then don't actually bring that into your presentation. So I think that's something that you need to think about, that it needs to be a little more detailed, a little more in-depth, because right now it's very much skimming the surface and it needed to be a much more in-depth presentation. Another thing I just wanted to point out quickly is that in your resource page, it was a little hard to find. The one-page presentation was okay, except that then trying to find the resource page and the bits and pieces of your resource page was a bit of a challenge because of the way the navigator worked. You didn't include a list of multimedia content that I could find, so that affected your mark in the end. And your annotations were somewhat lacking in detail as well. You need to make sure that you are concise, but also provide enough information in your annotations that somebody could get a real sense of what the article is all about. So a few things to keep in mind, a few things to think about. You've made a good start on this presentation. It just really needed to be a little more in depth. So thanks very much, and if you have any questions, do let me know.